Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. With me in the studio today, I have Scott from the Stair Guys. So, Scott, first of all, mate, really appreciate you coming in today. Bit of a last-minute recording this one. I'd got a cancellation of a job, so I put a message out on social media, and like the superhero that he is, Scott jumped into the rescue to come and do an episode which is going to get you guys through the Christmas period where hopefully I'm at home chilling. So, Scott, thank you very much, mate. Let's talk.
No, mate, thank you for having me. I've, like I say, driven past a few times, really impressed with the place. We talk quite a bit, social media-wise, on and off, so it's a pleasure to be on here, and the work you're doing it's insane. Like we kind of touched on before, mate, it's something you should be really proud of.
I really appreciate that, mate. It's nice to hear those bits of feedback. I mean, you're relatively local to where we are now. So I guess first bit, mate, the little introduction on yourself, really, what you do, where you're from, and all the rest of that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I own and operate the Stair Guys, which is a kind of does what it says on the tin, staircase company.
Guys that do stairs.
Guys that do stairs. The only reason for the name literally was all the years that me and my business partner Tom have done it. You turn up on site and it was always the Stair Guys here.
The Stair Guys. yeah.
So it was kind of done. So that was where we started all of it. Like we touched on before, I'm not a tradesperson. I'm a marketing person and maths man, really. But I've only ever worked within the building trade.
So when you go out do you do surveys?
Survey every job we do.
And do you do those yourself?
I do them personally, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's the maths man then.
Yeah.
What sort of staircases do you guys do?
Anything really. So we've got a range of suppliers across the country, so we can do anything from sort of standard softwood stuff that you'd see on typical building sites, I guess, up to things made out of metal, glass.
Oh, okay, so proper bespoke.
Yeah, generally the more bespoke the better. Tom, my business partner, deals with the site side of things. I tend to deal with the more bespokey, unique ones, just because it's where my area of expertise and background's in, really.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit trade on the questions here because it's twigged my interest. But what would be, what's the most elaborate and expensive staircase you've had to put in?
I mean, quite a few of them, to be honest. We've done a few that are in the range of about 40 grand.
Oh, okay.
With sort of continuous helical handrails and things like that. Metal, bespoke turn metal spindles, all that kind of thing. So, but we can never really talk about that work because they're in the places that people don't want to know where they are.
Right.
As a general rule of thumb. So,
have you had to do any like NDA work?
No, not to that degree.
Like celebrities and stuff like that? I have
done in the past, but never had to sign anything.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of do work for a lot of celebrities through the back door, if you like. A lot of them do building development, and we deal with their people to get their work done.
Yeah.
If you like, the only sort of differing factor for that is we don't so much at the minute, but we used to do a lot of work for the Gloucester rugby team.
Oh, okay.
The players that were there. So really, really great guys. And they just love it, and just so down to earth. So in my phone, I think I've still got a couple of the lads who used to play for England on my phone.
They're a different breed, rugby lads, aren't they, to be fair?
So, lads,
yeah. Salt of the earth guys.
Done a few Premier League footballers' houses as well over the years.
Nice, man. Yeah. And how long have you guys been working?
3.5 years now.
Also, not vast amounts of time.
No, not long at all.
How was your journey into that? Like, how did that come about?
Stairs in general. Well, I fell into the industry. Literally fell into the industry.
Didn't fall downstairs.
No, didn't fall downstairs. No.
Fell downstairs, had a big accident and thought, this is it. I'm taking a stand. I'm going to fix all this.
No, I went to uni up in Stirling in sort of central belt of Scotland.
Okay. I'm not picking up. You're not from Scotland,
No, not from Scotland. No, I'm Hereford born and bred, but I haven't really got the accent of Hereford either. I think it's just because I've been dotted all over the place. I've got a bit of the turnip cruncher to me, but it's not.
I was going to say, actually, not after talking to you for a while pre-record, I don't think I'd really picked up, I guess, that sort of Midlands belt somewhere in between Bristol and Birmingham. Kind of, there's a few accents in there, but you've got quite a soft. You haven't really got a pronounced hard accent in any of those, really.
Yeah, but I come from an agricultural background. So my granddad, who's no longer with us, he was a dairy farmer.
Right.
So that's my mum's side of the family. Dad's side of the family were all mechanics in Hereford. No one's really ever left the county lines, really. So it's the old joke of you kind of need a passport to leave Herefordshire.
Yeah.
It's
Big old place, Hereford, as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Gorgeous part of the world, though.
Mm.
It was a great place to come back to once I'd finished being away.
So, I mean, let's get into that then, mate. Let's get into your story. So, grew up around Hereford.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, childhood, normal childhood, not abnormal childhood?
No, yeah, normal childhood. Old man, well, my dad ran a business. He doesn't run it anymore. Never really saw him much when I was growing up.
Okay.
Nothing wrong at home or anything like that.
Just because he was grafting?
He was grafting, but he was either in America or China.
Oh, right.
Generally, he's a tool maker by trade. So he, to this day, a lot of the stuff that's in the building trade, so the John Guest click plumbing, he designed a lot of the tooling for that. Pretty much any component in a Myra shower, the smaller bits.
Okay.
Sort of 2015, he'd have had some sort of role to play in that as well. And yeah, so he was here, there, and everywhere doing the work to pay for us to live, really.
It's a difficult one, mate, isn't it? I think it's one that a lot of people in the trades or business owners are going to resonate with. It's finding, and me personally, I have that battle all the time where I'll sit there and I think, I know why I'm doing everything that I'm doing, which is to do that, which is to provide the roof over the head and give my family a good life. But then there's that part of me that also says, am I missing the point here? Yeah. You know, am I putting too much time in? And I mean, how was that for you as a kid? Like, did it affect you that your dad wasn't around much?
Oh, shit. But I think it's more of a thing. It's something I've made peace with the older that I got. Or I've got, rather, in a sense that I can look at it now and understand why, because I've got kids of my own.
Right.
So I totally get it now. Whereas when I was younger, it's like, well, Dad's not here. You go to sports day, Dad's not there, or whatever, not understanding why. But it is what it is. There was a stage through my childhood where I would just call my dad George.
Really?
He just wasn't my dad. Well, he wasn't not my dad. You know what I mean? It was hard.
Yeah. And was that as a reaction from your point of view, almost like letting him know that he wasn't there enough?
Possibly. I don't really know why. I know it's sort of on or looking back on it, it was bang out of order. But it's hard to sort of envisage it why I did what I did way back then anyway.
You adapt to your circumstances, mate, don't you? And as a kid, you're not that aware, like psychologically aware of why you're feeling the way that you feel. You just have the feelings and then react to them. But yeah, it's interesting, mate, that like that detachment by name almost to represent the fact that he wasn't around enough to, it's almost like you saying to him subconsciously, you haven't been around enough for me to call you dad. Yeah. So,
but the thing I'm really, really grateful for it of now is that it put me in the position of I'd never do that to my boys. So I've almost gone on a complete overcorrection of all of it, that I won't miss wake up. I will not miss bedtime. I do what I can not to be away for any nights because of work. So I've probably gone to the other extreme now, if that makes sense, with my kids.
100% makes sense, mate. I've done similar things myself. I, for a long time, I've got to the stage that you mentioned now, I understand more. But when I was younger, I used to say that I had a perfect example of bad parenting. I was shown exactly how not to do it. And I would react, like you said, in the opposite ways. And yeah, it's hard, mate, isn't it? Because as you do get older, you see things through different eyes. Having kids is a massive game changer because you then start to feel those pressures that your own parents felt that you can't understand until you've got kids. You can't understand the pressure of being a parent till you are one. And it's getting it right, mate. Like you say, no doubt your dad at the time probably thought he was doing the best for his family and doing the right thing.
I couldn't agree more now, 100%. Absolutely. You just don't, like you say, just don't get it when you're younger. No, I didn't get it when I was younger, to be fair. It's one of those things.
Yeah. How was school for you, that kind of thing? I always find this as a bit of a pivotal moment with a lot of guests.
School was fine for me. I say fine. I really excelled with maths generally. So I remember sort of school from about 11, the end of primary school, if you like, or whatever you call it around here. I know different places call it different things. Yeah. And being sat doing is it Key Stage 2 SATs? It's whatever they were. The one you do when you leave primary school. And having the head teacher of the school over on my shoulder and coughing at me because I'd fucked up a a maths answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's really stuck with me for some reason. I don't know why.
You fucking cheat. You
This is how I got it, right?
Had the backing of the headmaster.
So, but remember that, and then going into secondary school and sort of sitting down with the head of year, and it being, I still remember that speech where we sat in a science lab and it's like we were expecting really big things of you 30 kids in that year. And it's like, fuck, what's going on here? And then I really struggled through secondary school, not socially. Socially was absolutely fine. But I always excelled with anything with numbers. Anything with letters, I struggled like fuck with. And I didn't know why. And it was always, you're lazy. You do just enough to get by. If you excel at this, why can't you be good at that? It's kind of where it was for me. So yeah, got through secondary school, went to Hereford Sixth Form College, and I don't know if they still do it now, but I assume they would. You do like a screening when you start.
Okay.
So did the screening, came out the other end. The Learning Support Centre contacted me. So, can you come in and have a chat? So yeah, no dramas, absolutely. So went and saw them. It's like, you've got really quite severe dyslexia, and you've also got dyspraxia.
What's the difference between the two, Scott?
I still to this day haven't got a fucking clue.
Oh, okay. Mate, I was hoping you could educate me then. But,
I, from what I've looked into in the past, obviously dyslexia is numbers. Dyslexia is letters and struggling to read, write. Not necessarily all of those things, but some of those things. I am clumsy by nature, which is the dyspraxia.
Okay.
So clumsy in thought, clumsy in action at times.
Right.
Not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
Just kind of is what you probably noticed when I was pulling that over earlier. I almost pulled the fucking table over.
Oh, mate, I've done that myself. Mate. Yeah. But yeah, it's easily done, that one, Scott. I'll let you off that one. But yeah, that's interesting, mate. I mean, I was a previous guest to you, Mark Marshall, also dyslexic, has quite severe dyslexia, and he was explaining that to me about the way that letters get jumbled up. And he was saying that because he was pointing at the sign behind the camera that you guys can't see, and saying like the word tradesman, he could look at it and spell it for a short period of time, but after not very long, the letters would kind of go away. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite interesting, mate, that you made it all the way through to like college level without that being identified.
I was really grateful though. I'm actually more grateful for it now than I was then.
Okay.
School was really difficult, but what you tend to do, fine looking back, was dyslexia wasn't really an understood thing that much then. So if you were diagnosed as being dyslexic, you were kind of shoehorned into a corner and no one really gave a shit about you. So I've got friends who had dyslexia at school, still good friends now. It's like, right, you're a set 6. You just got chucked to the bottom, and not that nobody cared about you. In this case, if you're all being, there's no sort of individual tailored requirements for you. You're all the same. We'll just do what we can for you and get you through. So the fact that didn't happen, and it happened at college, was probably a benefit to me.
Yeah.
Not knowing at the time, but it was that moment when she told me, it's like, makes sense. I kind of understand now why I've struggled so much with everything.
I think that's where it's important, isn't it? Because I'm quite anti-labelling, but in the right circumstance like that, it's really important, because when you're sat there thinking to yourself, why am I not? Why can't I get it? Why don't I get it like everybody else? Why is it easy to everybody else? Yeah. But to actually then have it explain that your brain works differently, therefore being able to then have that label, which then enables you to go out and adjust your life to live in the correct way, that's dead important.
Yeah, it was more like validation of what I'd gone through. Do you know what I mean? It was just a case of, yes, and then I had the adaptation at college. Like I said before, when I went off to university and had help with it there as well, more to prove to myself that I could do it. Because I went to uni the year of the sort of financial crisis, 07, 08.
Okay.
So it was a time of, do you know what? There's no fucking jobs out there.
Yeah, that was recession, wasn't it?
It was really bad. I was, a neighbour of ours from back home had sort of toyed me up to go into investment banking in the city, which I'm so glad I didn't do. Hand on heart, really glad I didn't do. So I just ended up going, fuck, I don't know what to do. I just went to uni. Spent 4 years up there and loved every second of it. Got some great friends from it.
That was a big decision, mate, to go for a Herefordshire boy to go up to the middle of Scotland. That's a big move.
Yeah, I've always been a kind of all in or all out kind of guy, though. So I've got mates who went to Bristol or went to Birmingham, or went to somewhere you can get to on a train. So I've either got to drive 7 hours or get on a fucking plane.
Yeah.
So I ain't coming home unless I'm coming home. I'm not just coming back to have my washing done.
All in. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the only way of growing up.
Mm.
Not that I hadn't grown up that much, but it was just a case of do it properly. And I was really grateful for where I'd come from then in a different way that I wasn't when I was there. You don't really appreciate where you. I didn't appreciate Hereford that much until I left and came back.
Mm.
You know, sort of being up in Stirling, which is sort of 45 minutes from Edinburgh and Glasgow. You go to those two places, and it's like, yeah, I couldn't live up there. Big cities scare the living shit out of me even still now. Yeah.
It's funny, mate, because like all this background information, there's people might listen and think, well, where's the relevance here? But I think all these little nuggets of information really set they set the tone for somebody's character. So like I'll sit here, I can learn things about you from what you've just said, in the fact that, you know, you're willing to take that gamble, that big move away, and the way that you are all in terms of almost forcing yourself to be all in to go into uni by putting that distance in place that you couldn't just pop home if you know, if your head went, you couldn't just be like, oh, do you know what, I'm going to go home for a few days, because it's such a big task. It's like it forces you to stick it out, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it was my girlfriend, now wife, from back then, still now.
Okay.
We survived those 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, we hadn't
So
long got together.
we're talking like high school, college,
pretty
sweetheart?
much, yeah.
Fair play. But how long have you been married?
We've been married, about 18 months.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the kids and stuff first and got married after. And yeah, we've been together for about 12 months, and then off I went to uni.
And how long have you guys been together all in all? Not to put you on the spot with this kind of... Roughly, you can give me decades, mate. Couple of decades.
17 years.
Fair play.
17 years, yeah. Yeah, long time. She's my rock, to be fair. I couldn't do half of the things that I've done. I couldn't have done. You know, sort of bringing it back to work. She was the person who said, "Do it, just do it." When I set the Stair Guys up, we didn't have a great amount of money in the bank. I'd just gone on paternity leave for our second little one, and I never went back to work. I set this up in paternity leave. I just had enough of working for somebody else. In the case, look, we got about 2 months runway. If this doesn't work, I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. We've got two little ones to feed and all this, that, and the other. But it's like, if you believe you can do it, do it. And that was it.
I love that, mate.
Yeah.
It's so important, and it's been a consistent thing with a lot of guests that have sat here, and you talk about the things that they've been through, and it's a consistent sort of like having that partner.
Yeah.
It makes a hell of a difference. Just to keeping people on the right track, and a lot of times, and just like those words of encouragement, because it's one thing believing you can do something, but I think everybody has that little wobble, that little crisis, even if it's just 10 minutes where you doubt yourself, to have somebody just behind you going, no, you're fine, you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, it really does make a difference. So yeah, again, mate, you're painting the background. Let's pause there a moment to thank this episode's sponsors, Zinza. Have you heard of Zinza's Perma White? Perma White is tough, it's scrubbable, and it's the best mould-resistant finish to use in high-moisture areas like kitchens and bathrooms. We use this in our business all the time. It's designed to resist cracking, peeling, and blistering for up to 7 years, and it can be tinted to any RAL or NCS colour on the chart that you want at selected retailers. It's water-based, it's low odour, it's easy to work with, it's quick to recoat. What more could you want in a bathroom quality and kitchen quality emulsion? If you haven't already, go and check out Zinza's Perma White. Thank you to Zinza. Let's get back to the episode. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
She's been there for some of the hardest points of my life. I mean, my best friend died when I was 18. So he passed away in a car crash.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it happens. You know, but I never really made peace with it. And that was one of those things that I kind of buried away for a long time until I only dealt with it about 3 years ago. 3, 4, 5 years ago is when I properly opened up about it and spoke about it professionally with somebody. And I didn't realise how that had sort of set a course in motion of bury everything. Don't deal with it. It wasn't from a sign of, I don't think it was trying to be strong. I just didn't want to appear weak. Didn't like crying. Any sort of sad emotive thing that I had would just instantly turn into anger.
I can resonate on that.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to deal with this sadness. So therefore, I'm going to be angry because at least I'm feeling something, but I ain't got to cry about it. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
So,
it's a point worth making about bereavement and grief. To be honest, there really is no time scale to put on it. The biggest loss I've had in my life to date was losing my grandfather, who raised me for a long period of my life. So he was like my dad, and that was cancer, and it was all very swift. He went downhill, and the whole thing, start to finish, was like 3 months. And I didn't speak about it for years. It was. It was, to be honest, it's my wife that brought it all out, because I would talk about various things, but I'd shut down very quickly, and she kept sort of like prodding and being like, "Well, what happened?" I'd be like, "I don't want to talk about it." And it took me. I'm trying to put a time scale on it. Say at least 10 years. At least 10 years before I was ready to lift the lid on it.
yeah.
And then that probably took another 2 years of slowly peeling back bit by bit, to a point where I can now, fortunately, I can now talk about like my relationship with my granddad. I can talk about my granddad and all the stuff that we did together, and I can even talk about the bad side of when we lost him. For years I couldn't. So yeah, it's a process, mate. You can't, to anybody out there that's listening that's been through bereavement and grief, you can't put a time on it. Everyone's different. Some people process things in the immediate aftermath, and some people it can be decades before you're ready to, and literally 20, 30, 40 years, it doesn't matter. There's no set parameters on how quickly we should deal with these things. It is beneficial to deal with them, as you've alluded to slightly there, that it set a course in motion of how you then dealt with other things. So, let's get into that though, mate, because I know you reached out to me over what I'm doing with the podcast and raising mental health awareness. And I know you have mentioned that you've been through your own mental health journey, and that you're a big advocate of the Andy's Man Club, which is out there in their hoodie now. I'm aware of Andy's Man Club. They're absolutely fantastic, by the way, the work that those guys do. Incredible. It's all part of the picture of people that are trying to help people out there. So, well, you can probably let us know a little bit more about the process with Andy's Man Club, and let people know that are listening how that all works in due course. But I guess your mental health journey then, Scott, where would you say that started? Would that be...
It probably, well, it does predate that, but that's sort of where it sort of kicked off when Kieran passed away. Because I never really dealt with it, sort of buried it, hit the drink really hard, fucking hard, and I was obnoxious to be around. My wife still tells me this now. Is like, I don't know how we got through that, because you were just a twat. And it's like, do you know what? I can own that now.
Yeah,
I couldn't have dealt with being told that then. So I'm just trying to deal with whatever's going on and whatever else. And it was just that was my sort of way of processing everything. So yeah, it started there, but there's been from there. It wasn't really until not long before I turned 30 it became a real issue.
Drinking?
No, my mental health.
Oh, okay.
The drinking things, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I packed in for a time related thing. I packed in properly about 3 months ago. So it's not a long standing thing, or I'm better than anybody else for not doing it. I've just completely changed my relationship with time in the past sort of 12, 18 months. That I'm just not interested in the time of not being with the kids and going for a beer, or feeling like shit on a Saturday morning.
That's a big thing for me, yeah.
Or whatever else. So it was just a case of, I'm bin it off. It got to a point of only ever really drank Friday, Saturday, if I ever drank on a Saturday, but Friday was always like a dead cert, basically. Wouldn't go out and get absolutely leathered. Wouldn't really go out. It was just a case of have a couple of beers. And I got back, I say about 3 months ago from home, spoke to Kerry, my wife. I've had a fucking shit day today. Like, properly, I just have a beer. I looked at her and just thought, do you know what? I could have come and had a really good week and good day, and I'd have celebrated the week with a beer. So it wasn't ever a problem. Well, it probably was a problem backdated, but recently it was just like, you know what? I don't need it anymore. I can have a good week and a bad week, but it doesn't have to result in the same end process. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've just feel better for it. Sleep so much better.
Man, that's so big.
Yeah,
it is. I'm so protective over my sleep now. The older I've got, sleep has become so much more important.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying with alcohol. And again, to people out there that are listening, I had this conversation a while back with a guest where I said, we were discussing, people that are going through hard times and struggles and sort of taking that step back, just examine how you're dealing with it and whether you're helping yourself or whether you're making the situation worse.
Yeah.
Because quite often you'll go through, like you just said, shit week, go home, turn to drink, have too much to drink, feel better in the moment for maybe a couple hours, but then the following day you're going to wake up and everything's going to be even worse. The problems are still there; they haven't gone away, but now you've got a hangover. Funnily enough, before you arrived today, I was watching some videos and statistics around drink and drugs and Christmas. Actually, we're just approaching Christmas. For anyone that's listening right now, was that it was 2 weeks away?
13th today, I think.
It is Friday the 13th today.
Yeah, happy days.
Lucky episode. So yeah, we're less than 2 weeks away from Christmas. But one of the statistics around that is drink and drugs make you 7 times more likely to take your own life.
I can imagine.
In the aftermath of drink in particular, because it's a depressant. So the fact is, if you drink the following day, you are going to feel worse than you currently do right now. Why do we do it to ourselves?
Yeah.
It's the culture, isn't it? I remember when I went through, and again, to bring it back to Christmas, but arguably my lowest point in life came at one Christmas about 10 years ago now. Which was when I was going through my divorce and separation of not seeing the kids for the first Christmas and all that kind of thing. And my mate, I'm not saying this to knock my mates at all, but any help I had from my friend circle was, let's go for a beer. Yeah.
It's the default thing.
You're going through that. Let's have a few beers, forget about it. Well, you do in the moment, you forget about it for a couple hours while you're intoxicated. And then the following day, your mates are tucked up. The reality is your mates are tucked up in bed with their family and you wake up now hungover in the same position. And it's a dangerous time, that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good that you recognised it, mate. I can see you've come to the right conclusion. To be fair, I'm not teetotal. I do still drink now and again, but it is quite rare.
Yeah. Against me, I'm all in or all out with anything.
Right.
So with the drink, it was like, fuck, I'm bent on the head.
Mm.
Not, I could go with you for a beer now and not touch it again. But then also, I'm aware that it's been 3 months. I ain't letting that number go to 0 again.
Yeah.
Because every year for the last God knows how long, I would do dry January, which ended up going from January through to the end of March a lot of the time anyway, and then just cracking on through the summer, and then just sort of literally just going in that cycle basically. If I could do it before Christmas, I'm just done with it.
So being all in and all out, how were you in terms of, could you have a couple, or was it?
Not really.
Right.
Not really. So it was either hit it hard or don't bother, basically. Atypical binge drinker probably is the best way to look at it, really.
I was exactly the same. I was up until recently, probably. I've now hit that point where I can have 1 pint or 2 beers. And I think that with me, a lot of it is because I know that the trade-off the next day is so heavy. Yeah. So I've got to that, I don't know whether it's maturity, just getting old, whatever, but I can just have a couple of beers and leave it now. And it might be that I'll have, 2 pints and then not drink again for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But then I still, if there's a social occasion, it can get a bit heavier still. But I know that there's a trade-off in it now. But yeah, it's interesting, mate. That's the people, because I used to have exactly that same character trait. Yeah. I would have, and I'd kid myself. I'll go out for a couple. I knew it was never going to be a couple.
No, times by 10.
First point goes down. That's it. All prior plans are out the window. Yeah. It's exactly. It's 10. Drink to oblivion was how it used to be. And weirdly, I don't know again whether it was a culture thing, mate, whether it's a generational thing. But when I was in my 20s, and probably early 30s as well, it was just the norm. Whether it was my social circle, I'm not sure, but
they sound like very similar circles, to be fair.
It was just drink to oblivion, but everyone was doing the same, so it all felt like it was okay and normal.
You were the odd one out if you weren't doing it.
Yeah. How weird's that? I mean, when you break it down now, it's strange, isn't it?
It's bizarre, yeah. When you really think about it.
Yeah.
But that's again, it's just not to think that you're better than anybody. It's just a case of you look back in reflection and go. Because I guess the way to look at it now is if you look at people in their teens now, statistically they're significantly more likely not to drink than and people of our age.
Yeah.
I'm not going to age any of us, but you know what I mean? Anyone who's sort of 10, 20 years older.
Yeah.
So they've caught on to something of, do you know what? Binning it off, not going through it. I mean, because you're probably the same as you. I probably started drinking when I was like 14.
Yeah, well, I mean, my history, Scott, my dad was a drinker. And I look back now and there's certain things I remember. And I remember like going back home from the pub with him. I never used to drink in the pub when I was with him at that age, but he'd sort of have a session in the pub and then stop at the off license on the way home. And he would buy me bottles of, you remember hooch?
Mm-hmm.
And it used to look like, yeah, mate, it was like a juice, wasn't it? Like orange hooch. And he'd get me like a couple of hooches, which then turned into 4 hooches. And you tried to work out the age. I don't reckon I was any older than 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So my own upbringing, and this isn't about me, it's about you, but my own upbringing, I drunk from a very early age and I was surrounded by that whole lad culture.
Mm-hmm.
So football, rugby, drinking, a lot of drugs went on around me. Me personally, I'm not into drugs. I've never touched a lot of things like coke and all that kind of thing. It's never ever been anything. I've always had a real fear that if I ever did it, I'd die, which has probably saved me ever getting involved with things, because if I did it, I probably would have like really done it. But I never ever dabbled in it. The first time I ever willingly did any drugs, just for the record here, I was 31 years old and I smoked weed in Mexico.
There you go.
First time I ever touched anything. And it didn't grab me. But anyway, mate, that's enough about me, man. We'll get back to you. So you said you got to the point where at 30 things really took a downward spiral.
Yeah, it wasn't long before Finn, our eldest, was born. And I don't know, I'd been feeling shit for a long time, but just sort of buried it away. It was sort of predated. I really wasn't enjoying work at all. I'd worked for, and I still think the world of them now. They're fantastic business, but they've grown so much that it just got to a point of, I don't recognise this place anymore. Through no fault of anyone who worked there. It was just a case of it had gone from a team of like 10, 15 people to like 60. And I was managing the sales team to a degree there. I actually had to demote myself because that was where I got to a point of I was sales manager of the sales force. Spoke to the guys who ran it and owned it. So I can't do this. I either need to go back to sales or I need to go. And it's not an ultimatum. I just can't do this anymore. I can't deal with I just couldn't deal with other people's stuff. It almost just felt like a burden on me, going on my shoulders. Which is why we've got no ambition to grow the Stair Guys in terms of staff levels, because I've been there. I could probably deal with it better now. Now I'm not a different person, but I've got a very different perspective on things. But I wouldn't want to put myself in that position again. Of having to worry about not how somebody else is feeling, but everything that comes with it, having to worry about the family, that additional financial burden, this, that, and the other. It's like, I can avoid that, so I'm not going to go there again. So I'd gone through that. Film was, and I just got really, really, really bad. It just spiraled out of control, drinking loads. It got to the point where I was gambling loads as well. I got into fucking mountains of debt.
Okay.
Just to deal with not wanting to process anything in my own head. So and it just got to a point of, I parked the car. I don't know if you know it, on the M48, the old bridge from Bristol to Cardiff.
The big bridge?
Yeah, not the
old big bridge.
The old big bridge.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
so I'd parked up on the M48 in the services, and it just got to the point of, do you know what? I've had enough. I don't want to be here anymore. I just cannot fucking be here. I'm done. So I parked the car up in the services, and I walked down to the bridge. My missus phoned me as I was walking onto the bridge, and it was almost like a snap of realization of, what the fuck am I doing? If she hadn't phoned me when she'd phoned me, I don't know if I'll be here talking to you now. I'm not saying I would have followed through and done it. I really don't know, but I didn't get far enough to find out. But it was just that thing of, fuck me, I can fix this, or there must be a way to feel better or whatever, but this isn't the answer. Not long before our little one's born and all that sort of stuff. So that was a real eye-opener that I very rarely talk about on that side of things. So that still is really quite raw.
Did you tell your wife at the time when she rung?
No.
Wait, no.
No. It was almost like I had an out-of-body experience.
Right.
What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's sad to have got to that point. In reflection, it was just years of, I'm not enjoying this. I hadn't processed Kieran passing away. Everything else that sort of culminated with it, and I was like, do you know what? And then I say, just dealing with it with the drink, dealing with the gambling, this, that, and the other. And it just got to a point of, I'm in fucking like 50, 60 grand's worth of debt, whatever it was.
What sort of gambling were you doing?
Oh, online stuff, just fucking anything. If you could, it could be like bunny racing in Hong Kong, fucking anything. It wouldn't have mattered. Anything that could just give me that rush for about 10, 15 seconds, so I didn't have to deal with myself. I was all over it. So I wouldn't sleep. After Kieran passed away, I got diagnosed with insomnia, which is fine these days, but I had to go on the tablets and stuff for a bit to sort a sleeping routine out. So that kicked back in again, that I just wasn't sleeping. So I'd go about 3 or 4 days without any sleep. But then go to work and have that shell on that no one would know anything was going on. Because I speak to a lot of people about it now, customers wise. I think I'd never have known. So that was kind of the idea. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want to talk about it at all. I just wasn't interested. So it culminated in that. I then went to see the doctor, which took a couple of weeks. I really didn't want to do that. But I knew there was something wrong. Then I had to sort of go and figure it out. So I went to see my local GP and went through. Didn't explain the thing on the bridge because like, I don't want to get sectioned.
Yeah, I think it's. Do you know what, Scott? That's probably a worrying statistic. I bet you there's so many people walking around out there that have got to that point, and nobody knows to this day.
Yeah.
Because that is everybody's worry, and it's just to put out there at this point that isn't what happens. I've spoken to quite a few guests that have either got to the point of making attempts or very close to making attempts. You won't get sanctioned if you go and speak to somebody. It's not, because there is that perception that if you turn around and say, I was about to do this or I was planning to do this, that they're going to come along, put your arms behind your back and put you in a soft padded cell.
That was the worry.
Yeah, and I think that's common, mate. If it wasn't for the conversations that I've had here, I would probably feel the same way. But it's quite important to get that information out that isn't the case. Yeah. And if you are feeling that way, then the best thing you can do is speak to somebody, whether that's somebody that you know and trust in your family, or whether that's somebody, a professional that you know and trust, or even one of the many organisations out there that are there to help, the likes of Samaritans, the likes of even Andy's Man Club, the likes of in terms of the construction industry, Lighthouse Club, Band of Builders. There's all these support networks there now. If you are feeling in any kind of way, like Scott just said, reach out to somebody and talk. But yeah, sorry, mate.
No, you're fine. So yeah, my father-in-law is clinically, he's a manic depressant, basically. Good friend of mine, depression. So I went to the doctor, like, I don't want to go on the tablets. I'd got to the point of I want to try and fix myself, but I don't want to be on antidepressants, because talking to those guys, I haven't got first-hand experience of it, obviously, but you go from feeling the pain to feeling nothing. So all sadness and joy is gone, and you're just kind of numb to a degree to almost anything. So she was like, right, look, that's fine. I got booked onto CBT, the cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yep.
Wasn't for me. Went through, I think it was during the pandemic. It was over the phone anyway. And it was 6 to 8 weeks of talking to this lady on whatever day it was. And it's a coping mechanism technique, basically, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You'll probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah.
And it worked for a bit, and it did help for a bit. But then it just all came back again, and I was like, I just fucking feel awful.
It's to expand on CBT a little bit for anyone that's listening. CBT is the commonly prescribed therapy that you'll get on the NHS. The reason the NHS use CBT therapy is because it's the easiest way they can quantify results. And realistically, CBT treats the symptom. So CBT is effective, but very rarely effective on its own. So CBT, you imagine you've obviously got symptom and cause. CBT treats the symptom. The cause remains. So if you only treat the symptom, the minute you stop treating that symptom, the other common thing with CBT is transference. So you will treat whatever your symptom is manifesting as, and that can be things like OCD. So you might treat the symptom being OCD, and then that will transfer into either a different form of OCD or a completely different sort of mental health issue altogether, because you're never treating the cause. It's like putting building terms, dodgy foundations, cracks in the building, you'll patch one crack up, another one will appear.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it is. So it's not, have to be careful, because there's people in the NHS doing great work and CBT therapists that are really trying to make a difference. But realistically, to do something to create genuine change, it has to be a combination
100%.
of like person-centered therapy and CBT and psychotherapy. So, you're Freudian, going back and looking at childhood. I know everyone's going, oh, it's because this happened when I was a kid. Probably was, to be honest with you. There's normally a degree in there. So generally speaking, the best therapy you can have is a combination of all three. But
so I did that, and it just, I kind of went into it under the assumption that this is going to fix me.
Yeah.
All the hope in the world. Then sort of 6 months later, just feeling like absolute shit again. So drinking, gambling, still just went back to it, basically. Because it was just the only coping mechanism I had. So I'd never done the drugs, same as you. And I think fuck knows what I'd done if I did again, because I'd have just gone as hard at that. And fuck knows, it could have ended up then as anything, unintentionally, to be fair, but it could end up anywhere. And then we've been trying to date it all now. About 4 years ago now, we were on a family holiday down in Devon with my parents and my sister, her other half, and the little ones. So my two, no, it wasn't my two boys. It was just our eldest and my sister's little girl. And something happened down there, and I can't remember what it was. And I've always had this habit of, when any form of conflict happens, I tend to disappear. Just not get pissed off or argue with anybody, just take myself away from it. So I just don't like the conflict side of things, which I'm better at now, but just couldn't deal with then. So something had happened. I ended up going to a pub, got absolutely fucking shit, like absolutely shit faced. My dad came and got me, and like I say, it just got to a point where I just didn't want to be here this time. I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to be on my own. Just leave me be. So my dad came and got me from whatever shithole pub I was in down there, and I just remember sitting outside of them and just saying to my dad, "Can you please just leave me alone and let me be the failure that I am?" I remember that clear as day, telling him that outside the pub. I just got to a point of, I just felt like such a burden on everybody, and it must be so difficult for parents, employers, and all sorts of stuff trying to deal with someone who just doesn't know what's wrong with not wrong with them, but do you know what I mean? There's something not quite right there. Very rarely can you put it into reasons as to why, and then just going, I just feel like shit. Yeah, but what is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so went on that, and me and my sister fell out. When my sister fell out with me, they ended up leaving the holiday. It took her a long time to forgive me, understandably, to be fair, because I was just an arsehole. A complete arsehole. And she'll probably never fully forgive me for it. And I get that. And it's something I've got to live with, that sort of things. So from that, it was almost like, it got to the point where it was basically an intervention with the drinking and everything. I was like, you need help. Like, you just can't keep doing this. Fuck knows what's going to happen with you, this, that, and the other. So I reached out to a number of therapists back home, and ended up, it got to a point in my head whereby I'm going to go and see a therapist. I don't think it's going to work, so I'm just going to go and see the person that sounds like it's least going to work. But at least everyone can leave me alone then, because I've done it.
So you're playing lip service to everyone else,
just to give myself the space and just to get everyone off my back, basically. So it was person-centered therapy.
Okay.
So I read it and thought, that just sounds like an absolute bunch of shit. This sounds like utter nonsense. And I met this guy called Rupert, who I still see every month now. And I don't think I'd go as far as saying he saved my life, but that guy turned my life around immeasurably. If you'd have met me 4 years ago, you'd have thought I was a complete bellend. Because I'm a very different person now to what I was then. I was obnoxious to be around, kind of by design, so people leave me be. And it just transcended into work and working with and whatever else. I was just a difficult person, basically. So speaking to him, we delved up a lot of stuff, dating back to being a kid, sort of touching on dad, processing other things that had happened. And then I just remember sitting in there. I think it was like the third session, and I just cried for an hour. So I just never I'd never let any of it out. It just bottled up that deep. And that day, I just felt like almost like a proverbial weight just come off my shoulders. Like I just let it all go. And it, talking through it and picking it apart on my own, because obviously with the person-centered therapy, you're very rarely led anywhere.
Yeah.
You tend to lead the way, and they'll only ever sort of get involved if there's maybe something, is my understanding of it anyway. That's my experience of it. So I'd gone down these passages and sort of opened up boxes and this, that, and the other of what was in my head, and sort of dealt with them, processed them, went through them, that I'd never ever spoken to about with anybody at all. And it was just like, fuck, I just feel so much better. Not fully recovered or any of that kind of stuff. It still does worry me to a degree that I might end up going back to gambling or something. I will not, just won't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. Don't. But I think it was more linked to how I felt as opposed to it being a thing. I just needed to get away from me, and that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Oh, yeah, I mean, I've looked into and studied the different modalities of therapy, and person-centered is what reaches out to me the most. And I would probably say is the most effective and certainly long-term, because that's kind of when the therapist goes on the journey with you, isn't it? They're not there to examine you and give you, essentially, sort of fix you. They go about it by exploring how you got to the point. And that's like person-centered is more likely to target the cause rather than the symptom. It's like, okay, you're acting out like this, but why?
Yeah.
Rather than, okay, you're acting out like this, so what you can do to stop this is this.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, you're going to get more long-term results from that kind of thing. But it's powerful, mate, what you just said. I'm a big advocate for therapy, and I've never done it. I would like to. I've always made the excuses that I haven't got time. I think probably actually with myself, it's not so much time. It's because I've got a habit of putting myself at the bottom of the pile. So it's maybe time and cost, because I look and think, well, I could use that money to do this, or, put it into trying to help somebody else, whether that's friends, family, or doing things like this. But this is my therapy. So I'm probably having a therapy session every time I speak to a guest, to be honest. So appreciate that, Scott. But I love to hear it, mate. I love to hear those stories, and I'm a big advocate for therapy. I really, truly believe that people should adopt therapy in the same way that they kind of do overseas a bit more. America, and treat it the same as, like, a lot of Americans all have a therapist in the same way that they have a gym subscription. So I can get my word out then. Subscription. Exactly. A gym subscription. But yeah, the same way they have a gym subscription, because they do value mental health a little bit more in the same way that they do physical health. And it's so much more widely accepted. In the UK, it doesn't seem to be the same, but I think it would be good if it was.
Yeah, but with that, it's just more people talk. It's almost like a stigma. It's the mental health stigma, isn't it? It's just like people won't talk about it because they're worried about how they're going to be perceived.
Yeah.
I will talk to anybody about it and just go, look, even if you think everything's okay, just fucking go talk to someone, like an hour a month.
Yeah.
It costs you 50, 60 quid, whatever it costs you.
It's a tune-up, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like an MOT.
100%, exactly that. So if you're willing to spend 50, 60, 70 quid a month on a gym membership, I mean, it doesn't matter how you are there down. If you're no good up there, the rest of it doesn't really fucking matter.
Absolutely, mate.
So it's a case of, try not to get to the point of existential crisis, in essence. Yeah. If you can afford to just pop it, even if it's once every 6 months.
Yeah.
And you think, just go and see somebody.
And the thing is, therapists, they speak to people every day. There's nothing you can tell them that is going to shock them. And they're not going to judge you, because it's what they do for a living. And they understand that everybody, including themselves, go through things. So the great thing with maintenance therapy, for want of a better phrase, is that they're likely to pick up on a potential problem before it becomes a huge problem. And a little bit like physical health, really, a lot of people might only seek out therapy once they hit complete break and crisis. So once it really gets to like where you got to, that point of intervention, But if you can maintain it, a therapist is potentially going to pick up through conversation, well, actually, there's this going on. Like, let's just make sure you're okay here and explore that a little bit before it becomes a problem, rather than 6 months, a year down the line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a massive advocate for it, mate. I think everybody should. And I don't think anyone should feel ashamed about reaching out for it. And it's a little bit... I'm a massive hypocrite, Scott. I've got to be honest. I'm a massive hypocrite because I don't do it myself. But it's a little bit like private healthcare insurance, like physical. So I've got private healthcare insurance, and the way that I justified that to myself was being self-employed and being in the building trades. If my body breaks down, I need to get it fixed and back online as quickly as possible because of my business. You should really think of therapy in exactly the same way.
100%.
I need to drink my own medicine, mate. That's what I need to do.
Genuinely massive advocate for it. I mean, I remember it was probably about 18 months ago, give or take now, sitting in a room with Rupert and going, you don't need to be here anymore. You know, you don't feel like you need to be here. It's gone from every week to fortnightly to monthly in sort of like an 18-month period.
Okay.
And he goes, not you're healed or anything, but it's just like, there's no benefit to you. It's like, no, this is my comfort blanket now. So I still see him now, and I use it more as almost anything that I've thought of in the last month, just chuck it against the wall in somewhere with someone who's completely impartial to everything, and just see what sticks. And it could be work related, it could be home related, it could be anything. But verbalizing my thoughts in a room is massive. There's somebody else there listening, and we've got to a point now where if he goes, you're being a bit of a dick, he will tell me I'm being a bit of a dick. And I appreciate that. It almost like reins me back a little bit.
Well, that's the first time that's happened. So we have somebody knocking at the door mid-recording. Yeah, a bit of a strange one. I'm going to ignore that and see if they don't go away. Oh, give me 2 secs, mate. I'm going to cut this bit out. First time in 6. Not going away. Hey mate, how you doing? Do you do your cast meter? I'm mid-recording in podcast at the minute. Who are you from?
British Gas.
Yeah, you have to come back, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're right.
What's your favourite utility people?
Tell you the story. Right. Bit of entertainment. Not that they let me know they were coming or anything like that. British Gas, come to read the meter. So, little diversification on the episode here. I'll cut out the bit where I was at the door. But since I moved into this premises, mate, we're 3 months in now. So I initially, when I first moved in, I started getting billed by 2 different companies for the same address. And British Gas, named and shamed, have been billing me since I've moved in for meters that aren't mine.
We've spoken about it.
Of course, yeah. So,
it's just like,
and I was told last week, like legit, I was told last week it was all sorted and that my contracts with British Gas were cancelled. And I'm now currently paying the correct energy supplier on contract. And now today, British Gas have turned up, interrupted my podcast to read meters that I don't have. So if anyone's listening from British Gas, sort your shit out, man. Scott, I'm so sorry. That's the first time that anybody has actually I knew it was going to happen at some stage. It's the first time that's ever happened, mate. Sorry, where were we?
I can't remember.
Therapy,
yeah, exactly. So it was, I use it now primarily for my benefit. And the last time I saw him, so I see him every month. I'm actually seeing him on Tuesday next week. So I diarise that every month, without doubt. It's something I look forward to, actually, these days. It's not a scary experience. It is the first time you ever go into a room with a stranger, and all they do is sit there, kind of like you are now, but obviously you're talking back, and just sit there and just sort of look at you. It's bizarre. It's no different to what we were talking about when we were sat down. Like, we've only just started doing these Instagram story things, or whatever the hell they're called, of recording yourself on screen talking to people who aren't there. It's very similar to that the first time. So but when you get going and start talking, you just forget the other person's there. It's like you said about the camera. I've not really thought about it once since we started talking. And I was freaking out so bad about this.
Everyone says this. To anyone listening, you see, that's a bit like nervous about coming on a podcast. Everybody says they forget the camera.
Yeah. So it's bizarre the first few times you do it. But when you, like I say, whether you think there's anything wrong or not wrong, or however you want to word it, there's so many different ways you can word mental health anyway.
Mm.
If you don't feel right about something as opposed to feeling wrong is probably the best way to word it, I guess.
Mm.
Go and try it. And therapy and therapists generally aren't one size fits all. So if you were to go and see somebody, just because that doesn't work for you doesn't mean therapy isn't something you can do. It's no different to your mates or whatever else. It's you're going to click with some people and you're not going to click with others.
Mm.
But it also doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. It just means you guys aren't a match.
Yeah, absolutely.
In essence,
Yeah.
and you'd be surprised. A lot of therapists will do half-hour, 45-minute free consultations on the phone.
Mm.
It's within their interest to make sure you can work together. Because they are generally they're governed by a board.
Mm.
So they're not there to monetize your pain. They're there to assist you in any way they can. It's their profession. It's no different to you going and painting somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Or me
yeah.
going and doing stairs somewhere. It's a professional service, and it really can fine tune the way you think things.
I think, the people like you coming and talking about your experience, it does good things because it lifts the veil a little bit. Because it's like a lot of people won't know what to expect from therapy, and probably traditionally the kind of audience that we've got here in terms of a lot of people that are in the trades and a lot of male heavy audience will probably be a little bit more sort of cautious as to what it would be like walking through that door for the first time.
Yeah.
Because again, there's not enough people like you that will talk about it.
I get it though. I just open up about all of it now because what's the point in going through what I've been through and not talking about it?
Absolutely.
If it can benefit a person or a group or whatever, it's not about me, it's about other people, which is why we do the stuff with Andy's Man Club at work and why we're doing the stuff with Project 7000 stuff. It's Tom's the same. Tom's business partner has also gone through you can't compare negatives, to be fair. Yeah. It's a dangerous game regardless, but he's also gone through his own form of crisis over the years. He's been on and off antidepressants in the 15 years I've known him. And if we can pass on what we've sort of gone through and it makes a difference to one person, then we've done our job.
I love that though, mate. That's creating value from trauma.
Yeah.
So it's something that, again, I'm a big advocate for is that it's that old thing, isn't it? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But if you can go through something, come out the other side, and then use that experience to pass on value to others, then it had a purpose.
Yeah.
And then it makes it a lot easier to look back at it then without becoming a victim to it. Yeah. If you can see the lesson, see the value and the growth, then all of a sudden that bad time you went through then actually has a meaning.
Yeah.
And you can look back on it with a totally different perspective of not necessarily being glad it happened, but not being resentful and victim to what happened moving forwards. Essentially, you can heal from it and move on.
Yeah, I think that, and every time I talk about it now, it just makes it more of a distant memory.
Yeah.
For me, bizarrely. Not that it's ever going to be... I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Not that I'm not susceptible to going through it all again. It almost reminds me where I've been, but pushes me further away from it.
Yeah.
Because being with Rupert in therapy, there was a point at the very beginning where I could only ever live in the present. I didn't want to look backward because it was too painful, and I couldn't look forward because all I saw was pain. So I could only live in that day. So I could never pre-plan even a few days ahead of myself. I couldn't see that far ahead because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So unlocking, and there'd be I imagine there'd be lots of people that go through it and just sort of not aware of it. If you've been, again, you can't compare tragedies or whatever else because everyone's biggest problem is their biggest problem. So that kind of is what it is. But if you can negate that, go through it, talk through it with somebody, so it changes your perception on where you've been to where you're going, it's a big deal. It can really help people, a person, whatever, a group of people. And that's what it did to me. I went from not being able to see 2 days ahead of myself to personally and professionally sort of looking well, like 5, 6, 7 years in advance. I couldn't have done that a few years ago. I just couldn't have done it. I didn't have that in me to look, say, the week ahead.
So there you go, man. There's the value of therapy. And you talk about the monetary cost of it, but I would imagine there was probably a point in your life that you would have given any amount of money to feel that way. the way that you feel now compared to the way that you felt then.
And that's the thing with it. Even if you look at it as a short, like I said, I probably don't need to do it anymore as such. I do it more for my sake than anything else, as that comfort blanket thing. But if you spend, say, you spent $1,000 on it over a 2-year period, and it makes you better, or a better version of you, or whatever you're looking to achieve from it, is it not worth $1,000? I mean, what else are you going to do with $1,000?
1,000%, mate. I mean, it's one of the problems, and again, people in the trades, to sort of illustrate that, really, a lot of us, we're quite hesitant to invest in ourselves. Yet you wouldn't think twice. Like me as a decorator, I wouldn't think twice of, oh, there's this new sanding system. Last year, I invested two and a half grand ish on a new dustless sanding system. It wasn't a requirement, wasn't necessary. Great investment because it's made my life a lot easier. But I didn't think twice about that.
Yeah.
But would I invest £2,500 in myself for my future that might then last another 20, 30 years? And I argue that it's like, yeah, but I could use that money on something else. But realistically, it's the best investment you can make is to invest in yourself. So whether it's £1,000 or £10,000, if that improves your quality of life, there's no better thing to spend your money on.
Yeah,
there really isn't. And like you've said a couple of times, mate, I've picked up on that. You've said that, you know, there's nothing guaranteeing that you wouldn't go back to some of the issues that you had before. But I would argue that now you're a different person. You have different coping mechanisms.
Yeah, 100%. I'm aware of that. But it's more a case of having been through it. It's almost like the addiction thing in general, isn't it? It's like, I will forever be addicted to what I was addicted to because of the thing that I went through. So, and that's it. That's what it was. That's what it is. So it's always there, but it's not no longer feeling the pain, no longer makes me want to deal with what isn't there. If that makes sense.
I understand. Yeah.
So I could go, oh, it was just a coping mechanism because I felt like shit, or I could just sort of own both parts of it and go, do you know what? I had a real fucking gambling problem. It was related to this, but it's also a standalone thing. So therefore, I am not going to do this again. All in, all out.
Yeah. I would imagine though, if you were to experience some kind of life event that was traumatic, that now your response would be potentially to pick up the phone to your therapist, rather than going to the pub and you know getting smashed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you know it's that lesson and that coping mechanism that's come around there. How did your involvement with Andy's Man Club come about, or when did you start attending or backing them?
So we started doing that as a business January this year. So we've every year since I started the Stair Guys, we've had a charitable partner, whatever you want to call it, quote unquote. First year, I think, like I was saying to you before, we did SANS, which is still the Neonatal Death Society, basically still with the Neonatal Death Society, because a really good friend of mine's daughter passed away not long after she was born. That was fucking heartbreaking. Yeah. She really helped me set the business up from a marketing side and standpoint. So that was the first year. Second year, we did Young Lives versus Cancer, who are based down sort of Cardiff and Bristol. Another great charity, always done it for the kids. And it got to a point of it was Tom's choice to pick. And Tom had started going to Andy's Man Club and goes, have a look at it, mate. So I had a look at it. I was still kind of in my centre of fixing myself. So I was like, mate, you take the lead with it. I'll just kind of be here and just back whatever you want to do. And it's the best thing we've ever done. And it's more, I think we're on course to raise about £6,500 a year. I think £6,500 for them this year. It's sort of where we're going to be, there or thereabouts, give or take a couple of quid. But although the money's important to them, it's kind of inconsequential to us in a sense that we get to have so many conversations about what they do and mental health in construction more widely, because we only ever see guys like you, chippies generally, general builders. Yeah. And they'll often go, what is it? Or I've seen that. Can you have a chat about it? We've got literature in the back of the vans. So if anyone wants it, mate, have it. It's on every single quote we send out. It's on our email footers. Really? Yeah. It's on every. So it's just we do this. Go to this hyperlink or whatever. Yeah. Find the club. It's on all of our on all three of us our email footers. Just literally just a hyperlink there. Click on there. You find your closest club to wherever you are. So it's ran every Monday except for bank holidays. I always get the time wrong. It's between 7 and 9 or between 7:30 and 9:30. I can't remember which way around it is. And they do amazing work, and it's all ran by volunteers. Basically, and they're trying. I think it's Project 50 they're doing this year. There's not many projects at the minute, but it's Project 50. They're trying to bring another 50 clubs to the West Midlands next year.
Really?
Or it's like Project 70. They're trying to bring a lot more clubs to the West Midlands. Like down in Hereford, the closest one for me is Abergavenny. So that's
a jaunt,
that's an hour.
isn't it? Yeah,
it's a long way away. Yeah. So whenever I jump on, I tend to do it online because you can do it online as well. And you haven't got to go there and say anything. You can just go there and be surrounded by a bunch of blokes who just almost, it's a community aspect as well. And everyone will have something to say. You haven't got to say anything. Just have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, a couple of biscuits or whatever. And yeah, they do, from such a tragic beginning as to why Andy's Man Club started, obviously with Andy taking his own life, they've made a real movement.
100%. I think most people have heard of Andy's Man Club. There's going to be that little trepidation again about people, what to expect. And that's what I think is important to outline, that is like what the club does, how it works, what to expect if you do attend, because that will get more new people through the door that might be weighing up whether to or whether not to go. But it's twofold, this, because there are some incredible organisations like Andy's Man Club that are popping up, and some of the construction-based ones that are doing some brilliant work, Band of Builders that I've mentioned already, Lighthouse Club I've mentioned already. But the point is there should be more done, like on a governmental level or some kind of initiative. I mean, mental health, I'm not going to go into it actually because we could be talking about it for hours, but mental health funding has been cut by the government consistently for a long time. There's a perception that isn't the case. It is. You look at statistics for like local suicide prevention, it's being cut regularly. It's not being backed. And there are, charities like Andy's Man Club are coming into that space and almost picking up the slack, but they shouldn't have to, that there should be more support from a government basis, in my opinion.
There should be, but I would probably make the argument that it's better the third sector actually doing it, because there's people who genuinely care about it. If it comes from a governmental source, it's only ever going to be half-assed. And that's irrelevant of the colour of the government, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always going to be that thing of CBT. It's always going to be the cheapest, most quantifiable way of fixing something.
Yeah.
And it'll probably end up costing us all more money anyway. Whereas if you've got 10 quid a month you can give away, give it to somebody like Andy's Man Club or whatever else.
Yeah.
You just don't know who you're going to help, save, change, go yourself, do whatever.
Definitely, mate. I mean, organisations like that, they are saving lives. They're saving lives on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Which is incredible, mate. It's all credit to people that go, attend and run these clubs. And it's a growing movement that looks like it's got no sign of slowing down. So hopefully I'll see more and more of the clubs popping up. I had somebody message me once actually and say that I should get in touch and try and set one up in my local area, but I'm conscious myself of the amount of plates I'm spinning.
Oh, no, I get that. Yeah. I think, I don't know exactly, so we've looked at it before in terms of helping them with the stuff in the West Midlands. You have to have gone to a club a certain amount of times before you can even go forward to running one.
Yeah.
So fair play, just fair play to them. And then sort of where we've been like the last 4 weeks now with Project 7000, Velocity.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Project 7 that you lost your cushion.
Lost my drink.
I was going to say your cushion's gone as well.
No, that's right.
You have to put it higher up, mate. Higher up. I've got used to it now, Scott. I've got the technique. You see, whenever I sit down, I lift it up here. Project 7000 by On the Tools. Incredible project. And just to outline it for anyone that's listening that hasn't seen it everywhere. So Project 7000 refers to the 7,000 tradespeople that have taken their own lives over the last decade, which would be a workforce big enough to build a city the size of Cardiff, hence the Lost City. So I think the statistics are saying that around about 700 tradespeople are taking their life every year. And hence over the last decade, the 7,000 and the city that never was or never will be due to those people committing suicide. Said that wrong then, not committing. That's a good point actually, because it's a slip of the tongue that I'm educated around. The word and the expression of suicide, people don't like talking about it. It's very taboo. And I say the old way of saying it, a lot of people will say committed. But that refers to, and the reason why the terminology has changed and needs to change is because that refers to a period of time where it was illegal. to try and take your own life, and hence the word committing, referring to a crime. So hence why that's dropped. So taking their lives by suicide. So yeah, that is the Lost City project that's going on by On the Tools, and I know you're very passionate behind that one, mate.
Yeah, for the same reason as Adam's Man Club, it's exactly the same premise. It's amazing what they're doing at the minute, and I hope they can do a lot more with it. Because I don't know if the day that came out, I scanned through the white paper. The first place I went. I mean, the website's great, really, really good, and it explains everything so well.
Yeah.
You go through that white paper, you're like, fucking hell, the state of some parts of the industry are an absolute joke. And you go through some of the qualitative analysis, if I can't even say that word, but you know what I meant. The analysis in there with the interviews of some people that have done in it. It's like, fuck. How's any of this okay? Do you know what I mean? And I think it was either 6 or 7 of the 11 main things within the report were financially related, in terms of why people feel either anxious or depressed or have done in the past. So I know the aim. I don't want to speak out against it, because I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form. But it's the £2.5 million to raise for therapy is great, and it's a great starting point. But there needs to be a point of, again, fixing the core issues. Therapy won't fix if you don't get paid and can't pay your mortgage or help your kids. So it's almost a governmental thing this time for them to really look at and go, right, payment terms need to be stuck to, and if they're not, there needs to be actual ramifications for it. Because, I mean, you got whoever's got a gang of, I don't know, 300 brickies or whatever, and they're on 90-day terms. That's a lot of money to be paying out to whoever, and then not to get paid. You're absolutely fucked. As a business, we're set up as full payment up front or don't deal with us, to never ever put ourselves in that situation.
You touched on it before about the expansion when you got to sales manager, that pressure of being a business owner in the position where you've got, even if it's just 2 or 3 lads working for you, and you know you're responsible for their wage, and you know, because smaller companies, you're more likely to know the person, so you get to know their family, you might know their partner, you might know they've got kids and their own outgoings. You take on all that responsibility by putting yourself in a position there as employer. And if, like you said, you're on 30, 60, 90-day terms, and you get took for that money, and then you can't pay your staff, and you know directly the impact that's going to have, it's a horrible pressure, and a pressure that is causing the statistics we see. So, yeah, I agree, mate, that there needs to be governmental action. I'm not sure in what shape or form.
No, nor do I, but it's almost that thing that needs to be said, that it's a really, really amicable and great project. It's going to be massive. What it's done already, it's caused like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it again, and it's great.
Yeah.
But it's great as long as the people who back it, not On the Tools and all that sort of stuff, but the people who back them to do whatever they're doing, stick to it. And it's not just like we were talking about before, just a bunch of posturing.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be genuine and real change. And for tradespeople in general, the financial side of things needs to be properly addressed as well. Because without the one, I wouldn't say the other doesn't matter, but it's got a lot less resonance if the core issue isn't fixed and it isn't properly done. But it's whether any government or any whoever wants to pick it up and go, do you know what, this is actually just wrong. It's one of the primary reasons why we as a business will not deal with any major house builder at all. We're not interested, because things. This is a generic rule of thumb, and I won't mention anybody by name, but it's like things need to be done for nothing. They need to be done tomorrow. They're not going to pay for 3 months, and they'll hold X amount of packing retention.
Yeah.
So that does not sound like a sustainable way to supply anything to anyone. And I would not put our suppliers in that situation. So therefore, why should I do it with our customers? Why should we allow that stress upon us? But it's almost like the industry generally just needs to go, do you know what? No. You know, you sort of look at I'm not an advocate for strikes or anything, or trade unions or anything like that, but you look at what happens when the NHS stops, or you look at what happens when the train drivers stop. Things actually happen. Look at the farmers in London day before last.
Yeah.
You know, and when the guys do the tool theft thing on February the 5th, I think it is next year, they're going down there, it's just going to stop it, and it becomes headline. So if everyone just went, you know what, fuck it, we're not working today, we'll stand outside the site, we'll kick off and just go, look, We want whatever it is, 14, 21 days, whatever the days are, but guaranteed. And if it's not done, there's going to be some sort of recourse, or we're just not doing anything. Because if the government themselves bang on about how they're going to build 300,000 houses a year, which they're not going to, it's fucking impossible.
They're going to. That's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to promise we're going to build this. The reality is the people making them claims are never going to build anything.
No.
The hands are far too soft. I've never seen any.
But it's not so much that. I mean, they can only do what they can do, but it's a case of this is what we are going to do. We're standing on the front of doing this. Like I say, it doesn't matter who the government or whether it's Conservative, fucking Labour, Green, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're so disconnected from the labour force and everything more generally that the only thing they're really interested in is things like HS2 and the really pretty things that do whatever, which don't really do much anyway, but do whatever. They're not interested in 25 houses outside of Bewdley or 100 houses outside of Birmingham or whatever. But so we are going to do 300,000 houses, and it is going to be us. Like you said, it's fuck all to do with you.
Yeah, but the point being, how are you going to build those houses if you haven't got a workforce?
Well, that's the other thing that's coming as well. You sort of look at there are, from my perception and just sort of looking into it generally, the amount of young people coming into the industry from a supply. I can't really talk about it from a labour side, but from a supply side, it's just not happening.
I can talk about it from a labour side, mate, and it's not to say that there's no youngsters coming in, because there are some, and there are some very good ones, but that there's nowhere near enough to replace those going out. And I think the deficit at the moment is like 10 to 1. So 10 retire to each one person coming in. And there's so many levels to that. So my son's an apprentice for me at the moment, and he tried to do an electrical course last year, did it for a year, passed his test and that. But his experience of construction college was awful. So, and it's something that I've heard across a few different colleges. The level of education is really poor. Consistency is really poor. The structuring really poor. The apprenticeships aren't there anymore. And I understand why, because from a small business perspective, when it comes to apprenticeships, there's very little benefit to the business to take an apprentice on, because they tend to get trained up and leave straight away. It needs looking at from the very, very first step, the first opening of the door. How do we improve this and make it more appealable to the youngsters? But again, then you go deeper than that, and that the academic production line that the kids are put on, where right from day dot, you're told that essentially you only go into the trades if you fail. So if you fail your exams, you'll end up on a building site. It's that whole message that is being drilled into kids from an early age. And now with the way that society is changing and hard work is kind of vilified rather than treasured, the building sites are getting double negativity in terms of, well, I'll only go there if I fail. So it's not really an option that I want to pick. But it's also known that it's hard work, and kids are pushing back against that these days as well, because they're constantly told that they're entitled to not have to ache after a day's work. It's a deep conversation, but what this is all spiraling towards is a huge skill shortage in the sector. And I've mentioned this a few times, mate, where fortunately in my trade as a decorator, I don't get emergency call-outs. So nobody rings me up on a Sunday at 2 a.m. going, Ross, my kitchen looks a mess. It really needs a fresh coat of paint. But what you do get is Sunday 2 a.m. phone calls, my pipes burst. What happens when there's no emergency plumber to come and stop that? What happens when there's no emergency electrician to come and put your power back on? Because there's so few of them that even the emergency calls are booked up for 3 months. What happens then? How is that going to be addressed if ever it gets to that?
But that's the thing, it's one of those things that will only ever get addressed if it becomes a problem. It's the, again, if you look at it purely from a governing point of view, the country gets run on a 5-year cycle. So nothing is ever more than 5 years ahead of ourselves. So it's just like, well, there's enough for the next 5 years, so we don't give a shit. Then it becomes the next government's problem of, fuck, we need to do something about this. No, we'll probably squeeze through the next 5 years. Fuck it, we kick down the road again. Whereas if there was, with construction generally, there almost needs to be like a 25 to 50 year plan from now of, this is how we're going to get more people in. This is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to build this many houses. Not, this is how many houses we're going to build. How are you going to do it? Fucking no idea.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where the country is.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's the same purely from a supply side. We're a bit of an anomaly in our industry that we're two lads in our 30s.
Mm.
Pretty much any other staircase company has either been bought out by a multinational conglomerate or it's someone in their 50s, 60s with absolutely no succession plan whatsoever because their kids couldn't give a shit about construction.
Yeah.
So the industry that's been so good for them, they don't care about. Or, you know, the two biggest ones in the country, Staircraft, got bought out by Travis Perkins not that long ago. And where I've been this morning, Stairbox, got bought out by Grafton, who used to own Build Base but have now sold Build Base. So there's nothing there anymore, really. And
isn't that frightening?
Not really. It's good from our point of view.
Oh, it's brilliant from your point of view, mate. It's fantastic. Yeah.
But we're never going to be set up to supply the major housing market. It doesn't really matter too much.
But it's the whole thing, though, mate. It worries me where it's going, and I could argue the same as you. Like on a personal level, the fact that there's going to be less people in the trade is great for me because demand dictates value.
Yeah. And
when the demand just keeps going up because there's nobody about, so does the value of the work. Which then you could argue you end up pricing yourself out of certain markets, but again, it's a whole different conversation. But in years to come, and I'm glad that my son's got into the trades. And he, for the record, he didn't get into the trades because he failed. He did well at school, passed all his exams. But we had a conversation regarding essentially the wage of an electrician and the wage of a doctor. And he was like, right, I want to get into the trades because it's a much quicker path and there's good money to be earned. Speaking openly about the building trades, there's money there because of the demand. But it's frightening. It's hard, mate, because I get caught up in this, like, trashing the trade kind of. It's provided everything I've wanted it to in my lifetime, and I come from a family that have been in the building trades our whole life. So I don't want to run being in the trades into the ground at all, but at the same time, you can't ignore the horrible statistics around the amount of people, the amount of men in the trades in particular, that are taking their own life with all the links to their career. It's a hard one, mate, isn't it? You know, what do we do?
Well, I guess if you compare it to anything else, if you think, I don't know what the general wage is, say it's 50 odd grand a year for a Sparky, for argument's sake, to be a Sparky 50 odd grand a year that you might get paid. You might get paid. Or you can go and be an assistant manager at a supermarket for 40 and you're going to get paid. And you're not going to have to do all the accounts.
Yep.
And all the other stuff that comes with it. I get it.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, but I mean, like for my lads, they can do whatever they want to do, but I'd never push them down the uni route like I did. It's fucking pointless. It is utterly pointless. I've only started using my degree in the last 18 months. However many years on from it. I mean, I'm in the jewelry industry. I'm qualified in charitable marketing. No. It's fucking. There's very, very few times that you go and study something that like you said earlier, that you end up coming out and doing something that's actually related to that, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Or a vet.
Yeah. And all credit to that if you're going to go down that route, but the non-directional, the way the schools just put these kids on a conveyor belt, send them off to uni with no direction. It's just go and get a degree. But why? Like what?
Well, that's the careers advice.
Exactly.
It all breaks down from that. Be that at school, at college, or whatever. I mean, I'd always say to people, go to college, whether that's academic or hands-on, be that a tech college or whatever, or an art college. My missus went to art college. Similar sort of thing. Go and do something after school. And then maybe look at getting an apprenticeship after that. And people look at apprenticeships as a really dirty word as well. And I mean, so it's just the best way to learn. If I had my time again, I would not have gone to uni. I would not have gone to sixth form. I probably would have just gone straight into an apprenticeship. But it's easy to say that now.
Yeah, it's hard, mate, isn't it? And you can't blame the kids because at the end of the day, they only know what they're told. You know, you don't know what you don't know. I know that sounds like an obvious statement, but it's true. And unless there's somebody there actually shining the light on it and saying, well, actually, there is another option here.
Yeah.
You know, this is what's on offer. Which I did for my son, and he could have gone to uni if he wanted. I didn't push him to the trades at all. I simply said, well, yes, that, you know, sixth form is an option, but here's what is also an option. make your own decision.
It's almost worth opening up. I mean, I don't know if you ever had them when you were at school. You could be sat there and there'd be an assembly, and there'd be some person who used to go to the school that's invented something or done something. And it's always someone who comes in a suit and tie, and whatever else, and they sold a business for however many million, or whatever. Of just sort of lambasting that into the kids, are going, right, so this is XYZ builder. He's now a multi-millionaire. He started off as a labourer. Because there's plenty of stories like that out there.
Yep.
Of blokes that will openly say to you, I can't read and write. I can build a house, though. I can build a real nice house. And I deal with plenty of them. They're cracking blokes. Just because you can't read or write doesn't mean you cannot make a successful business. Because a lot of people will look at tradespeople as tradespeople. It's not that they're all small business owners. Of the nuts and bolts of it, because you've all got to deal with the same shit that I do, be that HMRC, payroll if you've got to do it, depending on whether you're one or multiple people. So that is what you are. So that almost needs to be taught as well. Whether you go into the trade or not from a young age, this is how you're self-employed. This is how it works. This is what you need to do. Because it's a governmental trap as well that everyone needs to be PAYE. Because it's fucking easier, because you know what they can do? They can get all your money. Not all your money. It's an easier way to collect all your money, and it's done. So if that was taught at a younger age as well, with whatever financial things that come with it, it'd be massive. And it would scare less people going into it.
I mean, it's been a long time since I went through education, but I've got two. So my son left education last year. My daughter's 12, so she's still in education. But from what I hear, mate, I mean, self-employed is just not talked about. No. It is straight college, well, GCSEs, sixth form, uni. Academic. And as we know, mate, there's a huge portion of the population that just doesn't fit with, it doesn't work with, and they're discarded from a school's point of view. But a lot of them go on to be some of the most successful financially people that you'll meet because they've got something different. They've got that entrepreneurship. Is that a word?
That'll do.
That'll do. Mean, yeah. I hate that word, mate. It's entrepreneur. I don't know. Anyway,
You sound too posh, though.
Mate, I always think I'm trying to sound French when I say it, but yeah, it's one of them words I really don't like. But it's not something that is discussed enough. It really should be. And it's going to land. It's gone very political now, Scott, isn't it? It's going to land this country in some issues in years to come.
Yeah, well, small business owners aren't celebrated anymore. And that's not a go at the current government either. Like I say, I haven't really got any political leaning. I'm politically homeless when it comes to politics in this country. But since I started the business, corporations tax under the Conservatives has gone from 19 to 25%. So we had to find that. So all of a sudden we're making 6% less on whatever profit we could make in the first place.
Yeah.
And then it's obviously changed again now. So any of the people who've got more than however many people that work from their national insurance bill has gone up overnight. I've got customers who have let people go because of that. And it's just like, well, so you're going to, again, going back to where you're going to build all these houses, but no one's fucking working in the industry anymore because they can't afford to. Because to do that, they need to pay you more money.
Yeah. I had this conversation with a customer of mine a couple of months ago when those changes came about, and because their opinion was that it's good that minimum wage has gone up and that the national insurance contributions, because the companies should be paying that for them. And I made exactly that point. I said, well, it's all well and good, the government standing there and waving the hero flag and cape and saying, we're raising minimum wage, but they're not paying it. So when the cafe down the road that used to employ 3 now has to only employ 2 because minimum wage has gone up, or, and name your small business, those minimum wage jobs, they might pay more now, but guess what? There's less of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So because I've got a coffee shop next door, the government aren't paying the extra. So now the coffee shop are earning less, therefore they can't employ as many. It's this weird, it's all cloak and dagger, isn't it? It's like the smoke screen. We're championing the little people.
We're championing, was it with the working people?
Yeah.
Because we aren't working people, apparently.
Yeah.
But by their own definition, we people who own businesses, we are the wrong uns, in essence.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just.
So we're going to force you to pay your workforce more because you're taking advantage of them and they don't deserve it, or they're valued at more, whatever it might be. All well and good, but where are the government grants to help support small businesses to make those changes? nowhere to be seen, mate.
I was having a conversation with another guy, and I think it was something to do with the capital gains. Capital gains thing had gone from 10 to 18%, and it was a mate of mine who's PAYE, and he goes, "Oh, it's only an 8% increase." It's like, no, it's not. It's an 80% increase.
Yeah.
Said, well, what do you mean? It's gone from 10 to 18. It's like, no, it's gone up by 80%.
Yeah.
That's the statistical number for you. I never thought of it like that. So because you haven't got to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of us, and probably a lot of people listening to this now, watching this now, whatever it is, we will generally get paid less than the people that we know well who are employed. Mm-hmm. As a general rule of thumb, won't be applicable to everybody, but there is a shitload more stress with what we do. We have to worry about what work's coming in, be that from, like I say, from a supply side or from a labour side. It's very similar. We just haven't got the hands-on side of it. You know what I mean? It's all the struggles are very much the same.
Yep.
It's just we've got to deal with the raw material shit that you guys just assume is going to be there a lot of the time. We're at that end of stuff going, where the fuck are we going to get this wood from?
Yeah.
You know, it can't come from anywhere with a conflict. It can't come from this. It needs to be FSC certified. It needs to be this certified. Fuck, I can't get anything anywhere. Oh, it's gone up by 1,500 quid a cube or whatever. That you guys don't see. The pressure's all the same. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's all over within the industry generally. And it's just, yeah. What? So you're talking to these guys and it's just like, yeah, but, you know, the people should get paid more money. It's like, no one's arguing that.
No.
No one's saying they shouldn't get paid more money, but where's the money coming from?
Exactly that point.
You know, it's not belittling anybody for what they do or what they earn. 100%, everyone deserves more money. No one could argue against that.
No.
But why should it be me or you or anybody listening to this now who's, I mean, again, politically, not recently, but the advantages of owning a small business generally now are obsolete, really, compared to what they used to be. There used to be various tax advantages to it that you could not turn over a great deal of money, but make a decent amount of money for yourself. Those days are dead. So it's like all that the country is going to end up with is a bunch of people who own businesses who are successful that fuck off out of the country.
Yeah.
Or just don't start.
I've spoken to 2 decorators recently that are both leaving the country. Okay. Both English born and bred, both leaving the country for exactly that reason. So, because they're working their arse off, essentially, working harder than they've ever worked. And we're all getting older. And they're seeing less and less for it. They can't get ahead. Yeah. You know, that sort of like comfortable retirement is just getting further and further away. And it's like a phrase that I had a cost of living crisis. The government, by labelling it a crisis, it makes it sound like it's nobody's fault. It's like a natural disaster, like a tsunami. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we couldn't have guessed this. Well, why is there a cost of living crisis? Because the action that's taken by the government have inflated everything. So then essentially the government's actions have created this crisis. And now what they're doing is saying, well, people need to earn more to cope with said crisis. And we're going to make it legislation and law that they have to get paid more because of the crisis that they created. And then, as you said, they're turning around to small businesses and going, you can pay for that. We're telling you that your people have to earn more, but you can pay for it. Yeah. We created the increase in living costs. Yeah. You guys can pay people more to account for the living cost. And that's the other thing, you know, minimum wage going up. The people that are going to earn more by being on minimum wage, they're not going to be any better off because everything else is going up on the back end.
Everything's relative.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We're almost, as a country, almost the success. It's almost our own downfall. I think you spoke to somebody else, but I can't remember what it was. That we didn't 50 odd years ago. We didn't have Netflix. Didn't have whatever.
Yeah.
But it's regardless of what you earn, you live within your own means. So you could get paid 20 grand a year, and you can probably live. May not be the most comfortable life, but you can live. You get paid 150 grand a year, you're generally going to have exactly the same problems as that person with 20 grand a year, but your mortgage is going to be bigger. Yeah, you can have a car that you probably don't need. You can have this, that, and the other. So it's all relative.
Yeah.
So it's. Yeah, but we don't need all the shit that we've got, which because I spend a lot of my time talking to other business owners not within construction because of some of the other stuff that I do. And it's always financially driven. I want to get to a point of my business being worth 10 million quid, or I want it to be worth 50 million quid. I want to sell it and I want to fuck off, whatever. I'm bizarre because money is never really my motivating factor. I want to enjoy what I do. Is the most important thing to me, and I kind of want to help people within the businesses that we do. So our profit margins could be substantially better or higher. We probably undervalue what we do as a service, but we get to help more people doing it that way, which is great. We're never going to be everyone's cup of tea, to be honest. But something else I'm working on for launch at the end of next year, realistically, is again trying to help small businesses, generally tradespeople, with their advertising without having to outsource it all to cost hundreds of pounds a month or spend hours a day doing it yourself. Because there is a way to compact that into a service which has got to cost something, but it hasn't got to cost 150 quid a month. It could cost a tenner. There's a way, but doing that in a way that it's a barrier to entry for anybody else because they're not going to want to do it at that cost. But similar to what you do here is if it can make enough money to run itself, perfect. Absolutely happy days. So that's my next sort of venture onwards from this.
Love that, mate. We shall stay in touch over that one. There is, mate. There's so much to running your own business. There really is, and this is all. Everything that we're talking about, mate, is what plays into this mental health crisis that has established itself around construction.
Exactly.
And one of the things I love about the Project 7000 thing, one of the messages that came from on the tools, is the fact that mental health awareness is being raised by more. And, I'll put myself as part of that. That's what I'm doing, is trying to raise awareness. That's the mission of the podcast. But off the back of the awareness has to come action.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the Project 7000. They are trying to take action with the money they're trying to raise to provide therapy, counselling, support. And that's what needs to happen. So I think there needs to be more action being taken. Other than that, it has got to be governmental legislations that come in to support people, as you said, financially. If that's a hot point, why isn't it being addressed?
That's it. And it's also sort of recognising the point to never confuse action with momentum. It's a case of, yes, something's being done, but is it actually fixing anything? Again, not having a pop at it, because that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So there's such a good foundation to build on here. Fucking go for it. Yeah. Treat it like a building. And make this the fundamental change of fuck it, let's go.
That's it, mate. I know what you're getting at, and I feel the same. It's like the ball has started rolling now. We must keep rolling it. It can't ground to a halt. So, and that's why the stuff that everyone's going to do, hopefully, to keep raising awareness. Only time is going to tell on that one, isn't it? But fingers crossed, I'll keep beating the drum over here, doing what I'm doing.
We'll be doing it as well. Exactly.
And we'll hopefully there'll be there's got to be a turning point. I just hope things don't have to get worse before that happens.
I don't think they could. It is the start realisation of it, though. I think that's why it's come to where it's got to. How, other than the numbers increasing, how could the industry become worse to make it worse? So it's not really going to stop anybody wanting to join the industry because nobody wants to anyway. People can't. Not many more people can go bust. The people who don't pay are going to carry on not paying. So it can't really get much worse.
So you feel like this is rock bottom for the industry?
I'd like to think so. But it's been coming for so long, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And it just takes someone big like On the Tools to do it and get everyone grouped together, that the entire industry, be that from your side, from the supply side, and people actually buying into it and doing something with it rather than just going, yeah, we support that, and then washing hands of it and going to give a fuck. But it's... Again, it's just, again, my perception on life, you're either all in or all out. But that's
no,
me.
I like it, mate. I do. It's great to get your perspective on things, because it's... Yeah, well, I'm sat here thinking as you're saying it. It's a good perspective and insight in it, and that's value. That's value to pass on. Mate, I appreciate you sitting down with me. I appreciate you being as open about your experience as you have been, because it takes balls to do that, for one. But you have sat there and done it for the same reason everyone else has, which is to, pass on your insights, your experience, in the hope that it'll help others. For anyone that does want to reach out to you and speak to you about anything that you've said today, where do people find you?
Can either email me personally, which is Scott with 2 T's at thestairguys.co.uk, or our Instagram is at _stair_guys. We don't really check any other. Oh, I'm on LinkedIn as well, but that's.
I'll put Scott and your business partner, Tom. I'll put Scott and Tom's Instagram link in the episode description as I do. So if you scroll down, depending on where you're seeing or watching, listening to this, if you're on Spotify or any of those platforms, there'll be a live link. Haven't worked out how to do that yet on YouTube, but the details will be there. You can copy and paste. But the Spotify one will be a live link. You just click on it. It'll take you straight over to Scott's profile. Before we do wrap things up, is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so, but
fantastic. In that case, mate, I thank you very much for your time. Quick shout out to the guys over at the Funky Peach for the guest merchandise, which I am about to bestow upon Scott. So hoodie and a beanie and all those kind of good things. But thank you to you guys for supporting the podcast as you have done. And as always, I don't know what happened to my accent then. As always, I'll catch you soon on the next one.